meeting people with where they are, understanding that the conversation is in the ears of the listener, and especially if you're looking to transform or make a change, sometimes you need to slow down to bring folks on the journey with you.
Welcome to the Leaders in Tech podcast. I am your host, David Mancilla. This podcast has been created to honor leaders in technology that are changing our world for a better place to live, not only for ourselves, but for our children and our grandchildren. And today we have with us an amazing leader in technology. I am so happy to have Bridget with us. Bridget, welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks for having me. Happy to be here.
Wonderful. For the audience, can you please tell me your full name? Where do you live and what do you do for a living?
Wonderful. Well, hi, everyone. My name is Bridget Pakowski, and I actually live in Newport, Rhode Island. I'm a transplant here during COVID. And I currently work at Johnson & Johnson, and I am in their cybersecurity organization.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for being here. I decided to make this podcast because there is very little on the internet about technology with leadership. And as you know, technology is being made by people for people. And so that if you want people to get something done and get it done really well, you require leadership. So that's why we are here. And I'm so happy that you decided to take this call for us. Can you tell me what do you do for the cybersecurity department in the company?
Yeah, absolutely. So I actually run the office of the CISO. And what that means is that my team, we focus on the business of security. And, if you think about the increase and, just from an industry perspective of what's going on in the cyberspace, we're looking at running the portfolio and the funding. What's the value that's coming out of it? How are we able to look for opportunities to streamline and automate so that, our cybersecurity teams are able to address the highest risk and the most important factors.
And I can imagine you must be taking security very seriously because, you have to protect thousands and thousands of employees, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And what's interesting of looking at the business of running security is that if there's an incident, teams are running to take care of an incident or, managing risk. But just like any other business function, you want to be able to prioritize the focus, make sure you're making decisions based on risk management, of course, but also the value. And what's interesting now is more and more companies become digital first. Digital is cyber is digital. And so even improving the experience for those who are consuming the technology goes hand in hand with cyber, which in my experience, I think is actually a change, because a lot of times people would look at cyber security or risk management type roles as kind of the, people who are going to say no or maybe blocking the speed of technology. But now we know that, the earlier you're partnering with those types of teams, the faster you're able to bring product to market. And also, in a lot of cases, improve the experience for those who are going to consume it.
Beautiful. And what an example on how to achieve greatness in life. Here you are running in this big department for a very important company. Let's look back in time and see how you got there. I'm very interested because, number one, when I went to my computer science undergrad, we were like 200 people in my promotion and only 4 of them were ladies.
Right.
And here you are running a massive department with cybersecurity and managing risk. So let's see what happens. I want to take you back all the way down to your last year of high school. What was in your mind? What were you trying to do? Were you trying to go to school or get a job? What happened back then?
So what's interesting, when my senior year in high school, I I wanted to go to law school. I wanted to be a lawyer, and I was very focused on that. I think my other driver was I wanted to go to school in a major city because I thought, hey, that'd be a great opportunity for internships and others. And I ended up attending Loyola University, Chicago. So I had kind of the excitement of, living in a city on my own, for the first time. And I'm the oldest of 6 kids, just to share that. So, I got to actually, have some alone time and not have, a big family running around. And so my major was really focused on political science because I had aspirations to go to law school. And a really interesting thing happened when I got my first internship that second semester freshman year. And it was at a law firm, and it was at a very large global law firm. And I went in thinking this is going to give me great experience. It was more in the paralegal space, but I ended up being loaned out to the technology department because they needed more hands because the demand in legal technology was really driven by clients. And so if the clients were demanding improvements in communications or billing or investigation work, the law firms were responding to it, and they needed to respond to it quickly. And that really started my love affair with technology, was being loaned out to the IT department, as a freshman in college.
That's amazing. So your whole plans were to become a lawyer, and then all of a sudden you're working in IT.
Well, and it was interesting. And, if I think about it, when I went back for my sophomore year, I was a full-time student, but I put everything all my classes were Tuesdays and Thursdays, and I would go to the office, and I had a suit and a briefcase, and I would go into the office Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and I loved it. And I ended up staying, obviously, in the IT group. And when I was graduating with my undergrad, and I didn't change majors, I stayed with political science, I still had that moment of, oh, should I go to law school? And the firm I worked for put me on a major program, and the rest is history. I didn't end up going to law school, obviously.
That's fantastic. So what did you do after you graduated?
So I stayed at the firm, and I was a full-time employee. And there I was leading, and I did everything there. I was on the help desk. I was running cabling. I did a lot of training work, and I actually stood up the project and program management capabilities. And as I said, at the time, and this was obviously years ago, the way the firm operated was they would have a pretty basic funding model, but then they'd have very large programs, and they'd want to do them quickly and globally. And so I had the opportunity to be a part of those teams, not only rolling out new capabilities in software and product, but also globally. So I had the opportunity to travel the world. And I did that for a few years while I was thinking about, what should my next degree program be? Mm-hmm. And again, I stuck with the theme of technology, but probably not the traditional of, I'm gonna go get a computer science degree. I actually got a public policy degree with a focus on technology.
So it's still some law there, right? That's good.
Still some law. I think that must be, maybe it's part of my DNA, I guess.
Beautiful.
And that was an interesting experience as well, because part of my undergrad degree, and that took me to Washington, D.C. from Chicago, which is where I was originally based. I was offered to be a teaching assistant as part of my grad school work. And my assignment was actually to work with the MBA professors because they were starting to do virtual online classes, and which was a really great experience, as you can imagine, bringing technology. And, some of those professors had been doing classroom teaching, their whole careers. And here I am, a grad student coming in saying, okay, let's start working on these virtual classes, and let's, be able to use these systems for people to upload their papers and things like that. And it was in the early days, now that's, people do online classes all the time. So it was a great experience as part of the TA work. And I also had the opportunity to still continue to work at the law firm part-time because they happen to have a DC office. So I was very busy, and I was able to kind of keep all of my interests going at that time.
That's wonderful. When was the first time that you actually got a leadership role in your life?
Well, I think being the eldest of 6 kids,
started at home for sure.
So if I think about it from a work perspective, some of it was, I think, leading some of the program teams that I did, because the role of project manager, you end up becoming that orchestrator and leader, and you're working cross-functional with teams. And that was probably the role when I realized, they always ask, like, what's your superpower? And for me, I realized my superpower there was being able to bridge the gap between the highly technical, employee to maybe the more business focused, or in the example I'm giving you, the more legal focused, individual. And so I was able to understand and work with the engineers who, who sometimes people are like, I don't even know what they're saying, and then really translate it and bridge it to the consumer or the individuals who are going to be working with it, who maybe were looking at it more from the business side. How is this going to help me with my clients, or how is this going to be able to help me do my job? And from there, I found I really loved that space. I loved being able to dig in and understand the technology, but also being able to say, hey, here's some of the user requirements that are needed, and hey, let's think about how we want to communicate with multiple audiences who need to consume these products, and what value does it give them as well.
That is amazing. For the audience, if you want to become a leader in technology, I think one of the most important skills that you need to develop is what you just said, Bridget. Having that superpower to bridge business with technical people is incredible, because the business is always trying to actually, add value, get revenue so they can do payroll and they can grow their company, right? And technical people are there to solve technical problems, and they don't necessarily match, right, what the CEO wants to do. So that if you want to actually create a beautiful career for yourself in leadership, especially in technology, figure out a way to do that, to be that bridge. That's what happened to me, and that's how I grew so fast in the corporate world.
Oh yeah.
Me being I was considering myself a good software engineer and then an architect. I also had many courses in accounting and business management. So that allowed me to understand both worlds, and that so that I could actually do the translation, if you will, like you said, right?
Absolutely. Well, and I think, having a curious mind and always being willing, to work with a variety of people really builds on that. And, it's always fun and interesting to actually, to your point, sitting down with the architect who is very much mapping things out and looking at the end-to-end view, and then, pulling that into the end product, and how does this come to life for the teams that need to work with it.
That is wonderful. How did you move up after that in your corporate career?
I'm sorry.
So what was the next stage in your
Oh,
in
absolutely.
leadership?
So what was, yeah, no, great question. So after I graduated with my master's, I actually thought about, staying in DC. Did I want to work in like the technology subcommittees? Did I want to work, with maybe a consulting firm? And the law firm I was working at, they had the opportunity, two big things happened. They had an opportunity to expand their presence in China, and they also were going to be merging with another firm. And so for me, travel had always been a passion. And so I jumped at the opportunity to really help open all of these offices in Asia. And so I spent about 2 to 3 years after graduating doing that. And at the time, if you think about it, it was, we had physical data centers, right? We didn't have things in the cloud. And so as you know, and the approach that we had from a technology strategy was no matter where you went in the world, you were going to have this consistent build, a consistent system and server build. And so I got to travel with a group of engineers and business folks actually helping to stand up the technology at these offices. So I was in Singapore and Hong Kong and Shanghai and Beijing and Guangzhou, and that was an amazing experience. And your team becomes your family, and you get to have all these wonderful experiences. The other part of it was the firm I was working for went through a merger, and we were bringing together a company that was using, and this is going to date me, Lotus Notes with Exchange and different data, different document management systems, which again, this is legal technology. And I was helping to lead the team to pull together that unified experience that the lawyers, the admins, and the staff were going to be using. And as we were moving forward with that, September 11th happened.
Oof. And you were overseas still?
No, I was actually in the World Trade Center. So I'm a survivor of.
Congratulations! That's incredible.
Yeah, thank you. And my firm was really blessed. We were everyone was able to get out except for one individual. What happened is we were there for the last prep work before we launched the new platform and the new system. And, that's probably my experience with that is probably a conversation for another day. But what came out of that was literally the fastest technology merger you can imagine. And the spirit of people and technology, like you said earlier, we created technology for people. Mm-hmm. That coming together of the firm, and there's a bunch of articles about it, if people are interested to see, is really what literally brought this group together, these two companies coming together. And, we had systems and everyone co-located in one office. And clearly that's New York, which wasn't even my home office. My home office was Chicago. Mm-hmm. But what I saw from that was everyone leaning into coming back to work, and the power of the work I was doing, which started as, hey, let's get these companies merged and, be able to have technologies communicate with each other, became, hey, let's help with the healing. Let's make sure the work our law firm is doing can continue to help businesses who are also going through recovery and things like that. So again, I was traveling a lot as part of the merger and disaster recovery. And so that was probably another couple of years. And the one thing about legal technology that I found is that at some point, no matter how high you go in leadership, it's definitely focused on what it should be, the law firm and the legal teams. So for me, I needed a different experience. I wanted to step out of just having legal technology. So I had an opportunity to And I was also sick of winter in Chicago. So I had the opportunity to move to Austin, Texas.
Nice.
And that is where I think my work started, working with infrastructure teams and, focusing on really, again, keeping in the lens of portfolio and project management, and started learning more even about quality as I worked, at Dell Technologies, and working with their infrastructure teams to actually map out their roadmaps and their products and programs. And there I was, again, leading a global team. And, another great experience, but drastically different from where I had come from working in the legal technology space.
So actually, Dell really put you on the global setting for a leader, right? For a leader in technology.
It did, yeah, because I would say the experience at the law firm, just because we were working globally, I was working with teams in Asia a lot, and here I was working, with teams that were our quality teams were based in India, so I had an opportunity to work with folks there, and then we had engineering groups that were based in Ireland, and then Austin as well. So that was really where I was working to lead the broader teams across the infrastructure space. And what was interesting, and if you think of Dell, especially at that time, is we were Dell for Dell, right? So we're behind the scenes working with the CIO's office that was leading Dell. Meanwhile, Dell is supporting all of these other companies globally. And so it was the first time I was actually really seeing the importance of sales and marketing, which, law firms have that to a degree, but they didn't necessarily have like the bottom line numbers you would see of, you have to support the sites where people are making purchases or the marketing campaigns. Otherwise, it has a direct effect to the P&L.
Right.
So, and then quality, we have to, that was an important part of the development cycle as well.
That is fantastic. So it really broadened your view of having more attention to the business while being still a leader in technology, right?
Absolutely. And I would say, just back to your leadership question, and I think this probably started when I was, working at the law firm and then at Dell. I was a woman, I'm a woman in technology. And in a lot of cases, I started to become the people manager, people leader to people who were older than me. And some of these folks had, 20 years of experience on me. And, one of the things I very much learned was, how to connect with people who you needed to respect the experience that they had and where they were coming from. And how do you connect with multi-generations and experiences as well? And I think the other part that became, really clear for me is meeting people with where they are, understanding that the conversation is in the ears of the listener. And especially if you're looking to transform or make a change, sometimes you need to slow down to bring folks on the journey with you. And I'm grateful that I learned that early in my career, because that's something I continue to remind myself of, especially when things are moving very fast. Everyone is different. They have different experiences. How can you meet them where they are and take them on the journey with you?
It's beautiful. And what deep wisdom and knowledge you have developed through that. This is invaluable advice. Thank you for that. Because you're right. I made the mistake of becoming a sergeant, and I thought my employees were my soldiers, and my way or the highway, and it created a lot of problem in my life until I realized that I was not a leader, and I had to go get a leadership course. I actually I went to a postgraduate degree on leadership because I didn't know what I was doing. And here you are learning all these things on the go. How do you manage to know that you needed to slow down. You needed to, see people where they are at. Having people 20 years your senior and you being a woman in technology must have been really, really hard.
So yeah, sometimes it was, and I remember walking into rooms where what I was saying was, discounted, like, okay. And then someone would say literally the same exact thing. And
It's horrible.
like, wait a minute, I just said that. The good thing is, I think once you gain trust, and I was very focused on delivery and meeting the timelines and commitments that we had. And once you're able to demonstrate the outcomes and the value, you start to gain trust with the leadership, and then trust with the team, that you've got their back, and you're able to work with them. I think the other part, again, because it was early in my career, I was single, I didn't have kids, anything like that. So I was willing to get on the phone with teams at, 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock my time at night, their morning, because I could. And I knew that a lot of times teams, especially in Asia, they have to do the late night calls to be on the phone with the US in the morning, for example, or, your teams in EMEA are talking at dinner time, so I was, even now I do that. I'm more than happy to take a call at 6 o'clock in the morning to talk to the EMEA team, A, because my house is quiet, and B, it's good for them because, they have more time before a lot of times the US gets on, and, they're in back-to-back meetings, and, having that flexibility to meet people again where they are, I think also helped with those views.
That's fascinating. And, it's incredible how you have been changing your roles as leader in different sides of technology, right? Because you were in infrastructure, now you're doing quality, and now you're a senior in cybersecurity. How would you tell the audience, how do you actually accomplish that? Because despite the fact that you're still a leader, it's different focuses on different technologies, right?
Yeah, it's interesting when I coach or mentor folks, because my career doesn't look, and I don't know if anyone has a traditional career, but mine, in some cases, there's some commonality there. Like, I love working at the enterprise level. I'm so grateful for the experience I had from an infrastructure standpoint, so that I'm able to understand the stack and the importance of that foundational work that needs to happen long before you put a product or an app on top of it. Mm-hmm. And so I always lean back on that. I love to get things done, and being able to demonstrate the value. And I love transformation. I love going and working with teams and organizations and relying on some of the experience that I've had with continuous improvement, product management, project management, agile thinking of, we can make your lives better if we take some of these approaches to how you work. And so even though I have been, I've had the opportunity to jump around from infrastructure to more of corporate or enterprise business services, to cybersecurity, there's been some, consistent foundational ways of working that I have for myself, as well as I think my experiences have built on top of each other.
It's beautiful. I'm very insightful for sure. What did you do after Dell?
Yeah, great question. So after Dell, I had the opportunity to join Johnson & Johnson, and it was with their infrastructure team. And so I left the warm weather of Austin, Texas, and and moved to New Jersey, and which was another interesting, experience for me. And Johnson & Johnson is obviously a really large global international company. So again, same concepts, large companies, global view. For J&J, it was probably and you can, anyone can look online. It's a Credo-based company, and the culture there is definitely foundational to the fiber of how they work. So for me, my style of taking people on the journey with you, making sure that you're connecting with people really served me well. I would say my biggest learning curve coming in was learning the space, learning and understanding the importance of the pharmaceutical, supply chain, med tech, consumer businesses, which I had, some of that flavor at Dell, but clearly not to that degree. And the work that they do is touching people's lives every day, which that was another layer, because when I was at Dell's important. It serves businesses that touch people's lives, but this was even that closer link.
Direct.
Which I loved. It added purpose of, hey, what I'm doing is helping, our scientists. It's helping, our developers be able to really work on health for humanity. So that became even another driver. And again, same opportunities where I was able to work with a wide variety of experiences and leaders and people. So for me, it was, again, just a great learning experience and taking that all in like a sponge.
So you eventually grew from infrastructure. You started growing up until you got your position in cybersecurity, I guess. Right?
Yeah. So after, so I was in infrastructure, and it's interesting, my relationship with cybersecurity started, from my work on the infrastructure side. I was asked to help with the a large identity and access management program. And at the time, I, again, understood infrastructure, but I didn't understand the security part of some of the work we were doing. And that was sort of my first step into the space. And, I was partnering with the cybersecurity team for this really large global program as we were, looking to modernize some of our identity and access management. And it was a wonderful experience, and really opened up my eyes to the importance and criticality of risk management and cybersecurity and quality. And then from there, I took a rotation working with our corporate businesses. And if you think about that, it's something I loved as well, because this was supporting HR and procurement and finance and, again, our legal teams. So I get to support legal again. But what was interesting there is that you're touching your employees' lives. These technologies are how people get paid. These technologies allow people to go take paternity leave, or be able to work with HR and have a learning and development program. So I think it satisfied two passions I have of, working from an enterprise level, and also seeing the value of the work that my teams were doing, really directly support people and add value to the business.
That's beautiful. You touch a great point regarding culture and believing in the whole cause of the company. I think a good leader will be a good leader regardless of the environment. However, if you want to become a great leader, you really have to be in the right environment. And what I mean by that is that the cultures have to match. If your personal culture doesn't match the culture of the business you're working at, it's very difficult. Because
Absolutely.
then you don't have motivation. You don't have this inspiration to come every day and make your company a better place for everybody, right?
Well, and it's interesting, especially now, with so many people are working remote and they're working in different ways than like going to a traditional office. A good leader really does need to focus on how do you build, that culture even within your team. Because the group I'm leading now, bringing that business focus into the cybersecurity space, my team is about a year plus old at this point. And as I've attracted talent and brought in new leaders, my focus with them was, let's see where we can innovate. Let's pull in these, bring everyone on the journey. Let's build these capabilities. And my team is all over the place. So being able to build trust and relationships and partnerships, both in person, because we spend plenty of time together in the office, but also virtually, I think has added another challenge to leaders, especially if you're building and growing something new.
It's not easy. I have been blessed to have my company. It's been running for 18 years. We build applications for businesses like yours. But since the beginning, I started hiring in Latin America, South America, and North America. So I've been remote since 2005. We do have a head office with a lot of people go, but only people that want to go. Mm-hmm. But I found it very challenging at the beginning. How do you build a culture with people working from home? It's so hard. I was able to figure it out 5 years after I started my business model in 2005. So it took me until 2010, 11 to kind of figure it out. Now we're experts at it. And when COVID hit, it was fine, right? I just said, I made a video to everybody and we had a town hall meeting and said, guys, we're prepared for this. We've been practicing this without knowing that it was going to be necessary.
See, that's wonderful. You were ahead of the curve.
Yeah. But it's still not easy, right? And I truly believe that if you want to inspire people, you have to spend time with them and you have to share values, right? Your values have to be similar.
Absolutely. Well, and it's interesting. I see a lot of times people now in their signatures, they have, it's something like, please support me in the way I work. If you receive an email from me at off hours, don't feel obligated to reply. Something more eloquent. But what I really appreciated about that is, for myself, I have small children. So the likelihood of you receiving an email from me at 5 or 6 in the morning is pretty high, because that's my quiet time. Right. That's where sometimes I'm catching up on things. And I certainly do not expect anyone else to reply back to me. But I appreciate that work balance now has become, if I choose to work early in the morning, or if someone's a night owl and wants to do it at night, that's their style and their work. And it doesn't mean your employees or your teams, you don't expect an answer in 10 minutes, and they're trying to stay up all night, responding back to you. So I think that work-life balance has become interesting.
I think that's called freedom. And one of the reasons why I started my first business was because of that. Because, I remember doing my best work between, 11 p.m. and 2 a.m. But I still had to go to an office and warm a chair for 4 or 5 hours or more, just pretending, I was not productive. I went back home and I would be productive at home. That's why I said we should give freedom, especially to technology people. Mm-hmm. So now I have systems in place. I build technology and I have best practices in place to allow people the freedom to work at their time while being more efficient. And this is the one thing that I noticed. Once you allow people to work in their own time, if you have the systems in place to make them accountable, their efficiency is going to go through the roof. It's actually backwards,
I always think of it as the magic hour. For me, I think I can get more done in those few hours in the morning,
right,
than I ever could if I had to sit there at your time. If I was working at 11 p.m. at night, it would probably take me twice as long. So right. It's allowed people to develop their styles, which I think reinforces the team dynamics, and good leaders need to recognize that as well.
Wonderful. Bridget, the hour went by so fast and I don't want to abuse your time. Thank you so much. Let me ask you one last question. If you had access to a billboard in front of the busiest highway on earth, what would you write in it?
Well, that's a tough one. I'm torn between saying something about protecting your data and being conscious of cyber. Like, do you know where are you protecting your data? Please don't have your password be the name of your dog.
I would love that billboard.
Yeah.
Please don't have your password be the name of your dog.
Well, I mean, and the reason I say that, it's timely. My parents had a cyber incident last night where they clicked on a phishing thing, and next thing I know, my brothers and I are trying to contain it. So that's why that's top of mind. And I think the other part of the billboard I would say is, let's remember that technology was created to provide freedom and flexibility. And if you think about, in some cases, we let technology be kind of that weight or that albatross. So maybe it is going back to remember, technology allows for that flexibility and freedom, and really embrace that too.
I love that. Remember that technology is to create freedom for people. That's it. Wonderful.
And also protect your data.
Yes, and protect your data. Bridget, if people would like to ask more questions or get in touch with you, how can they find you?
I think probably LinkedIn would be a great place to find me. And please feel free to shoot me a message. Happy to talk anytime. And thank you so much for the opportunity today. I really enjoyed our time.
Wonderful, Bridget. Thank you so much for your time too. Have a blessed rest of the week, and I'll see you around.
Thank you. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you for tuning in to the Leaders in Tech podcast. Check in next week to keep learning how to use technology and leadership to change the game. See you next time.